It's an impossible job. So many iconic names to choose from. Players who've worn the red of Manchester United with such distinction. But having seen the contenders, it's now time to reveal the lineup. This is Manchester United's greatest ever 11.
Hello, I'm Steve Bauer. Alongside me, 4 Old Trafford legends with 1,820 appearances between them. They're here to discuss and debate the outcome of a poll that you, the supporters, have been responding to in your thousands to pick Manchester United's greatest ever 11. With me, Lou Macari, the striker turned midfielder who rejected Liverpool for Manchester and spent 12 seasons playing in front of his beloved Stretford End. Sammy McIlroy, the last of the Busby babes who scored on his debut in a Manchester derby and was instantly labelled the next George Best. Alex Stepney, holder of League, FA Cup and European Cup winning medals, who proudly stands 6th on the all-time United appearance list. And finally, Captain Marvel himself, Brian Robson, signed in 1981 for a then record fee of £1.5 million and someone who was definitely worth every penny and more. Football is all about opinion. There is no right or wrong lineup. They're here to discuss the outcome of a poll worldwide that asked supporters to name a goalkeeper, 2 fullbacks, 2 central defenders, 2 central midfield players, 2 wing wizards, and finally 2 men to put the ball in the back of the net. So we pick our first position of goalkeeper. They are the 5 contenders: Ray Wood, Harry Gregg, Alex Stepney, Peter Schmeichel and Edwin van der Sar. 5 goalkeepers, Alex, from 5 very different eras.
Yes, Ray Wood and Harry Gregg. I didn't see a lot of them, obviously, because the media attention wasn't like it is today. But I mean, I know Harry, and I saw Harry play. And because I think he was picked the best goalkeeper in the 1958 World Cup for Northern Ireland. So tremendous ability. The game was different then. It was a lot harder for goalkeepers. You know, the laws have since then changed. But going on to obviously the great Peter Schmeichel and Edwin van der Sar, I mean, when you look at me and you probably look at Harry and Ray, the other goalkeepers in that era. They're all 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", you know, and that's how the game's changed. But Peter was magnificent. I mean, he came as a raw player, actually, a raw goalkeeper. He made his name with United, some great years there, won everything, unbelievable in a fantastic team. But he actually organised the defence, he talked to the defence, he actually started things off as well from the back. So he was a brave and honest keeper, massive.
Sammy, Alex is one of the 5 contenders. He can't talk about himself, but you played plenty of games with him. What was he like to play in front of?
Well, there was never a dull moment. A big Allen goal. I mean, it's fantastic shot stopper. Organisation, first class. You heard him all over the park. You know, he behind you, centre half. You knew when he was coming. You knew what he was doing. And as I say, he was. Everyone rose to Big Al's organisation, his bubbly character, and he was fantastic to play with.
Poor penalty kick taker though, Steve.
He fancied himself as an outfield player as well, then.
Well, he did. My memory serves me right. We went on a pre-season tour to Spain and played in a competition in Murcia. And Al actually took a penalty there, saved a penalty, and took a penalty and scored. And then we come back to the league and started the season in England. And I think before one of the games, I think Martin Buchan said to Tommy Dock, who's going to be taking the penalties? And the Doc said, Big Al. And I think we couldn't believe what he'd said. But after he'd taken his first 2, we realised it was a good decision. But then he missed one, Steve, that actually could have got us relegated.
Did they break away and score, Lou?
No, they didn't break away and score, Brian, but he missed one. Was it Wolverhampton Wanderers? Yeah.
Wolves at home, yeah.
And that was the season we got relegated, so a lot of people blame Dennis. I'm blaming Big Al.
Thanks very
for
much.
missing that penalty. He was like goal scorer as well. Yeah. I think in alphabetical order though, Sam, wasn't it? Because I think I had 2 at Christmas, and Sam made 2, and Brian Kidd had 2, and Al. Yeah. Alphabetical order, A was a top goal scorer.
Brilliant. Peter Schmeichel didn't score too many penalties. You were at the club when he came. Did he change the face of goalkeeping, Brian? He was different to say the least, wasn't he?
I think he did in the sense of his presence. I mean, he was a huge guy, a real talker. In fact, sometimes a little bit too much, because if anybody got a shot in from 35 yards, you know, Schmeichel would be at you, and you're in centre of midfield, and somebody's had a shot from 35 yards, and you go, any chance of closing them down? You know, and so that's the way he was. But, I mean, he was brave, great kicker of the ball. You know, because of his presence, he was a great athlete. You know, so he had everything.
And it took them a while, Alex, to replace him. They eventually got Van der Sar. How highly did you rate him?
He was the finished article when he came, and he was tremendous. His distribution was second to none, and I mean, he made, and he was. I would say he was probably one of the last of the brave goalkeepers going down head first at players' feet. Big Peter, you could hear him, but I don't think really when you watched Edwin, he didn't. You know, he wasn't that character. He organised well, but he relied more on his angles and things like that. He didn't really have to do anything else really, and the whole thing is the defence, the back four really knew they were safe because he was behind them.
He was calm, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Edwin. Yeah, you know, there was never a panic about him.
OK, they were the 5 contenders. We can tell you emphatically, with 66% of the votes, the goalkeeper in the greatest ever 11, voted by the supporters, is Peter Schmeichel.
Crossing again and a good one. And not it down. A wonderful save by Schmeichel. It was past him and he got it away. Great save by Peter Schmeichel.
So the first name is added to the team sheet. Peter Schmeichel emphatically occupies the goalkeeper's position thanks to his 8 trophy-laden seasons as United's number 1.
Now we move on to pick 2 centre-halves. The shortlist is Bill Folkes, Martin Buchan, Steve Bruce, Gary Pallister, Jaap Stam, Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic. You always look for partnerships here. Brian, you played with 2 people in Steve Bruce and Gary Pallister. 2 real characters as well?
Yeah, Brucey and Pally, you know, what can you say about them apart from being a partnership? Hardly's ever injured and both terrific in the air. And even though Brucey was only like 5'11", I mean, he was outstanding in the air, and that's why you look at the caption, and you know, 51 goals for a centre-half, terrific player. One thing I would always remember about Brucey, though, he had great confidence in his own ability, and one of the first games he ever played in, he nearly cost us a goal by bringing the ball down on his chest. Somebody robbed him, went clean through, and at half-time, they missed the chance, but the gaffer at half-time comes in, and he absolutely tears into Brucey, like, you know, you ever bring the ball down on your chest ever again? He says, you'll never play for this football club. Well, I'm not kidding. We've only just kicked off, ball comes down, Brucey go, bang, chest down, pings the ball out to the left wing, fantastic pass and all that. And I ran past and I went, Brucey, you're dead at the end of this game. But he just did it terrific, and he had great ability, great reader of the game. Then you had the other one, Big Pally. I mean, great player. Nobody could beat him in the air. When Pally was up for it defensively, he was terrific, and he'd command the box, you know, and all aerial stuff, and we had to rely on him big style with him and Peter. And that's why we didn't concede many goals from set plays. But the funniest thing about Big Pally, you know, I used to play in front of him, and certain times in games you'd go, and you're trying to get that second breath, like, and you're thinking, turn round, have a look at Big Pally. Always humped over, hands on the knees, big red face, absolutely couldn't get his breath.
Great
and you'd
trainer,
go,
wasn't he, Pally?
And you just look and you'd go, I'm feeling brand new here. But great player.
Talking of partnerships, Lou, looking on over the years, Ferdinand and Vidic, how good?
Well, I think what they've done at Manchester United over the years, Steve, has been quite remarkable. I mean, you look at the two of them, and they're both commanding. Rio, cool as you like, when under pressure. And that type of centre-half is a dying breed. You know, you've got a lot of different sort of types of centre-half now in the Premier League, but none as good as Rio Ferdinand and Vidic. And I think the big fear was that any of the two of them getting injured, it would be a big problem, you know, to Manchester United. But fortunately, other players have come in and done okay. But I think when you've got those two at the heart of your defence, you've got a great deal of confidence that you're rock solid, and they've played exceptionally well in the time they've been at Manchester United.
Sammy, your old captain's on there, Martin Buchan. What was he like as a player and a person?
Well, a couple of sides to Martin, character-wise, you know, he was immaculate on the pitch and immaculate off it. I mean, we'd go in training and, you know, jeans, tracksuit, whatever. Martin would turn up in his suit and tie and hair immaculate and everything like that. But he was a fantastic player, very quick. Never ever seen anyone run him out like that. Always looked after himself. But there's a story there with Martin. We used to have a tea room at Old Trafford. Families, friends used to go into the tea room after the game, and it was always packed. And I mean, I was probably a culprit. I used to get 5 tickets from my family and whatever, and Martin wasn't too happy about that. And by the way, Steve, when I'm on about money, he used to make his life hell, Lou McCarry. Used to make his life hell over this. So
there's a shock.
we used to get this situation with the tea tickets. Martin would actually say, right, I'm taking over the tea lounge, and he would give the tickets out, how many you would have. And then after one game, he came off the pitch, the lads were making their way to the dressing room, he is still in his playing kit, and he went and stood at the door and took the tickets actually off the people going into the lounge. Unbelievable. That was Martin. He wanted everything right, and it had to be the Martin Buchan way. But a fantastic footballer.
And Sammy used to switch the lights out in the players' room when he felt everyone had enough drink and it was time for everyone to go. So he'd go up and switch the lights out, say, shout, right, everyone out. And Sam's right, he's an organiser off the pitch and great at it. Organiser on the pitch as well.
One of the contenders from your great team in the 60s, Bill Folkes, Alex.
Well, Bill, I mean, he's the old school. He was, 18 years centre-half, minding lad from St Helens, got through the Munich air crash, which was incredible, really, to carry on playing, you know. And actually, for all those games, I think he only scored 9 goals, but one of them was, you know, you can never forget in Madrid in the semi-final of the European Cup in '68, because he put us in the final. And how ironic that was, a Munich survivor 10 years after Munich putting us in the final.
He's a big hard man, Noel, wasn't he?
Well, he was a hard man. He was
in training, and when I played on them in the reserves, and he was physical. Even at 38, 39, I think, you know, he was built.
I remember a game, Sam, you playing at Southampton. Big Ron Davis was, you know, the big target man, and we were 2-0 down at the Dell, and you know, Ron had scored 2 headers, and I just said to him, come on, you're going to have to sort him out. The next ball that come in, big Ron Davis was cut over his eye, broken nose, and we finished up drawing 2-2. So that's the kind of thing. Sometimes you have to say things to Bill to really get him going, but when he did, he done it.
He used to head centre forwards back of their heads.
That's right, yeah.
To sort them out to see if they wanted any more.
He did look tough.
Yeah.
I never saw him play really, but he did look a tough man.
Don't make him like that anymore then.
No, not at all.
Jaap Stam, Brian. How good a player for Manchester United was he?
I think he was a great player, great defender, had a bit of everything, great pace, timing of tackles, very strong, good in the air, could pass the ball really well, could dribble the ball well. Didn't have as long a career at United as all the other centre-halves we've just mentioned there, but in saying that, I thought he had a fantastic time when he was at United. But I think he was one who fell out with the boss to a certain degree and had to be moved on, but a great player.
OK, time now then to reveal the 2 central defenders that you have voted into your Manchester United greatest ever 11, and they are Nemanja Vidic and Rio Ferdinand. And Rio Ferdinand just getting 1% more of the votes than Steve Bruce.
Of Jonas Gutierrez homing in on him was Vidic. He got his man.
A solid field to the centre of defence then, with Ferdinand and Vidic taking their positions in front of Schmeichel. A combination of pace and power, somewhat of a United tradition.
Next up, we pick two fullbacks. There's the list of contenders, beginning with Johnny Carey, the 1948 FA Cup captain of Sir Matt Busby's first side. Roger Byrne, Noel Cantwell, Tony Dunn, Arthur Albiston, Dennis Irwin, Gary Neville and Patrice Evra. Lou, let's start with one of your former teammates, Arthur Albiston. Almost 500 games in the Manchester United Red.
Yeah, and his very first game, Steve, was, well, one of his first games was a big match for Arthur, and it was out the blue. Stuart Houston got injured, I think it's Bristol City. We were heading for a cup final, and on cup final day it was announced that Arthur would play, and I think it was the biggest shock he's ever had. You know, young lad, and you're playing in a cup final, and you're playing against Liverpool as well. But I think the great thing about Arthur was he was a cool, composed character. You could play him at left back or right back, and he went on, as you said, to make all those appearances. Good player, great character as well, and very early on in his playing days, we christened him Chippy. Because,
go on.
Well, just at a team hotel before one of the games. Actually, I think he was just a youngster at the time. He was brought along on the trip as to gain experience, and one of the waiters come round with a plate full of chips and asked him if he wanted any more chips, and he sort of walked past Arthur, and Arthur almost assaulted him and shouted, "No, more chips here, more chips." And from that day on, Sam, wasn't it? We called him Chippy. Yeah. Simple as that.
Yeah, getting back to that cup final, Lou, 77, the actual press were trying to put Arthur down. Maybe this is the way that Liverpool,
because of Steve Highway.
Because of Steve Highway,
right,
might be swapping wings, and this could be a way that Liverpool could get the better of Man United. But he had a fantastic game that day.
Alex, what about those two guys, Noel Cantwell and Tony Dunn, that you played behind for many years?
Yeah, I mean, Noel was a big influence. I mean, he was captain of the '63 Cup-winning team, and he was from West Ham. He'd come from West Ham, and in those days, the West Ham sort of coaching phenomenon was going on, and he was part of that, and he did help quite a few of the players in the team. Tony Dunn, ever present. You know, he played over 500 games for the club. Didn't score many goals, but was so reliable and had lots of pace. And he could play right back and left back as well, you know, so he was very versatile fullback. Great consistency in those days, and particularly in some of the teams you played in as well. Dennis Irwin, Brian, 7 Premier League titles, almost 530 games. How good a fullback was he?
Quiet assassin. That's what we used to nickname him. Because Dennis, you know, he was really quiet, unsung hero. He'd just get on with his job, but he could do a bit of everything. I mean, you hardly ever saw anybody skin Dennis as far as defending was concerned. But then, what can you say about the lad? He's playing in a team who's got people like Cantona, Giggsy, and he takes the free kicks. And at a time as well, and he was taking penalties. You know, so that showed the quality that Dennis had. And plus to play left back all the time, even though he was predominantly right-footed, just showed what a great player he was.
Gary Neville is on there as well. You were...
Well, I'll be amazed if he's not in Manchester United's greatest 11 here, just because of the way he hates Scousers.
Was he as vocal, shall we say, when he first broke into the team, when you were there?
No, he was quite quiet. But
I can't believe
But
that.
in saying that, when he was with the youth team, he was the one who was always captain. He was the one who played centre-half a lot and would demand from his teammates. So he always had that captaincy and shop steward stuff inside of him. But he was Mr. Consistent, Gary, as far as I'm concerned. You knew what you were going to get out of him. Every time he went onto a pitch, you knew exactly what you were going to get out of him. He was outstanding as far as being a fullback was concerned.
Here's Neville. That's a great ball in, and it's produced another United goal.
Gary Neville's cross. Rooney going in. Get in, says Gary Neville.
We're talking about great consistency there with Dennis Irwin, but following him was Patrice Evra.
Oh, unbelievable. Fantastic fullback. Never really seen him getting taken to the cleaners, and I'm not too sure he's a left back. The way he's been playing the last couple of years, he's always attacking, great at overlapping, getting involved in the attacking side of the game, and also he's a very jovial lad. When the lads are having a little bit of a jolly up, he's the main man. He gets them all at it, and Pat was saying that he's the prankster, taking over from Lou McCarthy.
I think he started off as a forward, didn't he?
He did,
France,
Centre forward.
And I think in his very first game for us, I think you could tell he was a forward because he had a bit of a nightmare.
City,
yeah, he had a bit of a nightmare game, but since then, I mean, his defending's got a lot better, and he's one of the top defenders in the country, and plus attacking wise, which he should have in his locker because he started off as an attacking player, superb at that as well. So all round fullback you've got in Patrice Evra.
And if you were picking this team, would you want one natural left footer, one natural right footer for your fullbacks?
Not the way that Dennis Irwin could play at left back.
No, that's a good point, that, because Dennis is like two-footed, isn't he? And he's played comfortably on both sides, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. He could take the ball on either side, you know, so that's why you've no problems of playing Dennis Irwin there. But in saying that, if people wanted to change him over to the right-hand side, if that's what you're hinting at, Patrice could be on that left-hand side.
Big Al touched on Tony Dunn.
Tony Dunn
did the same thing.
In '67, I mean, Bobby Noble came in at left back, and Tony went right back.
It's very competitive. So let's reveal the two fullbacks then in your greatest ever Manchester United 11. They are Gary Neville and Dennis Irwin, with Patrice Evra narrowly missing out in third place.
Acceleration. Oh, this is absolutely fantastic. Dennis Irwin.
Two right-footed players take the fullback berths, Gary Neville and Dennis Irwin. But no doubt that Dennis would be very comfortable in the role he occupied for so many seasons under Sir Alex. Next we move on to choosing two central midfielders, and some fantastic names on that list from Manchester United's history in this category. The likes of Charlie Roberts, part of that famous half-back line of Duckworth, Roberts and Bell. Duncan Edwards, of course, said by many, including Bobby Charlton, to be the greatest ever, not just for United, but for England too. And Eddie Coleman, his midfield partner in that famous Busby Babes team. Sammy, as a former midfield player yourself, when you look at that list, the club really has been blessed in that position over the years.
Oh, no doubt about it, Steve. I mean, I think for me this could be the hardest, pair you're going to pick, midfield players. I mean, it's just unbelievable. You know, when you look at the list, I think there's different styles there as well. Competitors, footballers, pass, scores goals, box-to-box players. It's going to be very, very difficult to pick two of the best midfield players.
Look at the two who are here and not even on that list.
I knew you were going to mention that. Go on, then they can't talk about themselves.
well, I can't, but remember when I was signed, all the papers had I'm going to replace Sammy. I'm sitting watching Wolves beat them 5-0. He scores a hat-trick and I'm going, yeah, good one, I'm replacing him.
He actually signed, I kept the match ball that day, and he actually signed the ball. Britain's most costliest sub.
Well, his first game was against City. Frank Farrell brought him in, didn't he? Yeah. And he scored a goal, in a derby game, which was fantastic for you.
Let's go to the 60s, with those generations where we have got footage. Nobby Stiles, a European Cup and World Cup winner, and Paddy Crerand, two terrific players in that European Cup winning team of yours.
True hard men. I mean, Nobby was more notorious to everybody as the main hard man, but I mean, I think Paddy comes up there as well. But yeah. I mean, not so much today, but I mean, Nobby was the man-to-man marker. I mean, there were certain games where the boss would turn out and say, you've got to mark him man for man. I mean, he'd done it against Eusebio, he'd done it for England in the semi-final of the World Cup, and then when we got to the final of the European Cup, that was the same thing. Matt said, you go out and mark him for 90 minutes. He'd done it for 86, actually, because, you know, when he did break through, Nobby was looking for his blooming contact lenses to come out on the Wembley, but by and by that. But no, Paddy, everyone said Paddy was slow. But I'll tell you what, something about Paddy, he ran for 90 minutes. He never stopped running, looking for space, wanting the ball, and was a great passer of the ball. So, you know, the pair of them together in the same team sort of utilised each other.
He had the quickness of thought as well, though, Paddy, didn't he? He had everything sorted out before the ball came to him. You know, he could just go bang, and he's got his pass sorted, a bit like Scholesy. I mean, that's what Scholesy's brilliant at. But Paddy used to have the picture sorted before the ball got to him.
I knew, Brian, whenever I got the ball, when the ball came to me, if I took a cross, I knew Paddy was already running into space. Look for him, find it, because he controlled it and away we went.
He was your old roommate as well, wasn't he?
Don't mention that.
We haven't got enough time for those stories. Were they players you used to look at when you were aspiring to be a footballer?
Well, I'd gone to Celtic as a youngster, and of course Paddy had just moved on to Manchester United, so I knew all about him. And I keep telling him to this day, and he denies it, but I remember him getting sent off for Celtic in the tunnel against Rangers. But he keeps saying that he can't remember that game. But Alex tells me he was. He used to like getting involved in confrontation in the tunnel on any match day.
Well, what he always said to me was that Matt had always said to him, if you get sent off, make sure you take the player who you've kicked or you punched or whatever, make sure he comes off with you. And that's what he used to do. I mean, once the referee had sent him off, he'd start with the other lad, he'd retaliate, and he would be sent off, and then he'd run to the tunnel and say, come on. And that was it. That's Paddy.
Some great names on there. As I say, we haven't really got footage to appreciate how good they were, but Duncan Edwards is somebody that Bobby Charlton, your teammate, used to talk about all the time as the greatest he ever saw. Did he mention that to teammates?
All the time, Stevie. All the time when you talk about, and like you do as a team when you're away, you talk about players past and what's gone on, and it was always about Duncan with Bobby. I mean, I was fortunate. I saw Duncan play 2 or 3 times in London because, you know, I used to go and watch him, especially when United was in town, go to Fulham and Chelsea to watch him play, and he was unbelievable. The stature of him and the physique, and he could play in any position, you know, centre half, even right back or up front, you know, midfielder. So he was a tremendous player.
Roy Keane and Paul Scholes. I mean, how good a combination were those two, Brian? You played with them both.
Great players. I mean, different attributes. You know, Keane, everybody knows, could be box to box, could sit in there and be an anchor role and defend, demand from his teammates, a real captain, good passer of the ball, good tackler. But I'm not going to tell any funny stories about him because if Keane watches this DVD, he might chin me. So there's none of that. Scholesy, you know, I mentioned him when we were talking about Paddy. And Scholesy is probably one of the best players I've ever seen with the back to play. So, you know, if he'd received the ball and a defender's coming in behind him, Scholesy seemed to know where he was, so he knew which way to turn. He could hit a pass, which was unbelievable, but the vision was terrific.
You remember the first time you saw him in the youth team or the reserve team?
Yeah, I played with him a couple of times in the Lancashire A team when I'd come back from injury. And for me, probably the funniest thing ever was at that time Robbie Savage was playing up front with him, and it would normally be Bex, Giggsy, and then it would be me and Nicky Butt, and that would be sort of the front 6. And so their goalkeeper would have it, and he'd knock it out to the full-back, and Robbie Savage would go whoosh, try and close him down. Scholesy would just drop in with the midfield. Then they'd knock it to the centre-half, knock it to the centre-half, knock it to the other full-back, and Savage would go wallop, 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 chasing this ball about. Then they try to play it forward. We'd intercept, go like that, bang, Scholesy, 1-0. And that's the way. So intelligent with the way he played, you know, fantastic.
He also had that knock pop, then getting into the box, like a run from the wing to score. The way Lou would do it, he was only a little bloke, but he'd score some great headed goals. With his timing into the box, and even for England as well.
Lou, isn't he, Paul Scholes?
Oh yeah, I mean, Brian, at the time you're talking about when he was a young kid, did you ever think he'd go on to be as good and do what we did for Manchester United and for England?
Not really, because everybody at the time were talking about Buddy and Bex, really. That's who everybody was talking about. Giggsy was a natural, but Scholesy, with him being so small, you weren't quite so sure, even though the boss always said, yeah, because he had the intelligence.
Lou, another name that stands out on that list, of course, is with us, Brian. He can't talk about himself, but you were at Old Trafford when £1.5 million was paid for this man.
Yeah, and I was a midfield player at the time, Steve, and I think it's fair to say that, you know, when you sign a new player, you're always a bit more interested than probably other people in the team. And of course, I remember Brian coming and thinking, right, what has he got to offer? And I remember one of the first training sessions, I always regarded myself as quite fit and could train quite well most days, but when he came, it was like, I can't believe what this fella can do. I just can't believe, I couldn't believe how strong he was. I couldn't believe how quick he could get from A to B, because I'd played with Sam and a lot of other players that were quick on their feet and could get from A to B, but Brian had that power and strength to do it effortlessly. And I'd never seen anybody before that, and I haven't seen anybody after that was strong, powerful, clever, intelligent. He had almost everything you'd want in a midfield player. And the biggest surprise I used to get was after we'd had a night out, and we used to have a few of those, it'd be fair to say, I'd think, well, the next day, those that drink, and I was a non-drinker, so I wasn't going to struggle the next day, but one or two of the lads that had a drink, Brian included, I thought I was going to catch up with them the next day, but we'd come into training the next day, and he would be as lively, if not more lively than anybody. And I used to go home and think, how does he do it?
You want to start drinking, Lou?
I think you might have said that to me one day.
What it was, Lou, I used to drink that much, I used to make my body numb so I didn't feel it the next day.
And Steve, not just for Manchester United, but his performances for England and getting from anywhere on the pitch into one of the most important areas on the pitch was that inside the box, and arriving at the right time, and so fearless as well, because that's probably why he picked up one or two injuries towards the end of his career. He was fearless. He would do anything on that pitch to win a football match.
Yes or no, would he be in your team?
Definitely. And if he's not in it, there's going to be an inquiry.
Let me reveal the two central midfield players that you have voted for in Manchester United's greatest ever 11, and they are Roy Keane and Paul Scholes. Brian Robson in third position.
Oh, there's got to be an inquiry. This must be the young generation. It's all it can be, Steve, that haven't seen enough of Robbo.
Sammy?
Absolutely, I totally agree with Lou. I mean, I've played against this man, club and international football, and I used to admire what he could do. You know, he'd be tackling at the edge of his box. The next thing, he'd be running by the opposition midfield players and heading the goal in. Just super fit and a great competitor and a fantastic footballer.
Football's all about opinion, and in our poll, Roy Keane and Paul Scholes just edged out Robbo, but you could easily pick any two from those three without compromising the lineup. All were simply great players.
Next, we move on to picking two wingers from that great list of wide men who've pulled on the United shirt over the years. From the early days, the likes of Wall, Spence and Meredith, considered a superstar of his day, who also played for Manchester City. Charlie Mitten, the left winger from the 1948 FA Cup final team. Johnny Berry, the right winger in the Busby Babes team, and one of only two players to win championship medals in 1952, 56 and 57. And of course David Pegg, who played on the opposite flank to Berry in that side. Some great names, Brian, but we'll have to start with Ryan Giggs for you, because you were at the club when he was a very young player. How soon did you know he was going to be a superstar?
The first day I saw him playing a practice match, reserves in the first team, a mixture of the two, and he absolutely tore Viv Anderson apart. It was an unbelievable performance. And you just looked at him, the balance, the pace, the football knowledge that he had. And the stamina, you know, because he was just a natural athlete, you know, so he had more or less everything, temperament towards the game, but his work ethic was top class as well, and that's why he's went on to have the career that he's had.
You took him under your wing at times as captain. What about sending him in for a club car?
Yeah, that was one of the ones where the boys thought that was quite hilarious, because the gaffer was in his office, and Giggsy had played a few games in the first team, but he was establishing himself, and I went to him, Giggsy, I says, I think it's time you should have a club car now, you know, you're doing well, you're the only one who's playing regular now, haven't got a car. And so anyway, he goes into the gaffer's office on the Monday morning. There's about 6 of the older pros. We come up to the steps at the Cliff training ground. Ryan knocks on the door, goes in, and all we could hear, I can't say the first couple of words, but it was, get out of here. So we all run back down and we go to Ryan when he comes back in the dressing room. How do you get on with the club car? told me where to get out.
Alex, Ryan Giggs was labelled when he first appeared the new George Best. You obviously played with the great man. It's difficult to make comparisons, but in his pomp, I mean, was he one of the best players you ever played with, George Best?
Yeah, he was the best player, I've got to say. I mean, and you know, to play with 3 European Footballers of the Year in the same team, you know, for me to say that is very difficult. But yes, I think Brian summarises Ryan the same. A quiet lad, intelligent lad, very fit. Absolutely, he's an incredible trainer as well. I mean, because what happened to him in the end was sad. But at the end of the day, he was amazing. You know what he used to do in training? In training, he would remember, right, let's say we're playing Liverpool on a Saturday. Well, if we play it this way, I do this. I'll try something out, and he would do it. He'd do it in training, and then go out and do it on a Saturday. You know, and he would think about the teams we were playing against, so he could do something different and turn them over. But I mean, I suppose the catalyst of it all was when he was banned for 6 weeks by the FA, and Wilf McGuinness, who was manager at the time, we were playing Northampton in the FA Cup, didn't know whether he should put him in or not, because eventually he had to put him in, and he scored 6 goals. I mean, it was an incredible display.
He wasn't just a winger though, was he? He was so brave in every sense.
Well, if you look
of the
at the
word.
goals he scored, 179 goals in for 1 odd games he played. I mean, it's incredible. He scored right foot, left foot, headed the ball, he took players on. You know, he was so different from Bobby and Dennis in the same team, which made us a great team, to be honest.
It made your country very proud, of course, Sam, and you had to follow him in a sense.
I mean, Big Al said it all there, Steve. I mean, he was just for me, I thought he was a complete footballer. You know, he could do everything. He was one of the main reasons why I wanted to come to Manchester United, because being a Belfast boy and not far from where I used to live, he was the one I used to look up to and worship, and just wish I could play anything near him. He was fantastic.
Luke, David Beckham left under a cloud, but had many great years in the United shirt.
Yeah, the first time I saw David was on loan, and he played against Walsall one night, and I was at the game, and obviously I knew he was a Manchester United player. And if you'd have said to me that night, Steve, that he'd gone to be the player that he was and he'd play for England and the way he played, I'd have said there's no chance. But he got better and better, and the same little lad I saw at Walsall over the next probably 4 or 5 years probably worked his way to the very, very top. And I think it's a lesson for all youngsters, that even at the 17 in a game, because the passing ability that he eventually got was just quite incredible. He seemed as though he could stand anywhere on the pitch and without any problem find a teammate, and he's still doing that to this day with LA Galaxy. You know, that's why he's still playing there.
The thing with Beck's, for me, I was playing in the A team down at Marine. I was coming back from injury, and I was captain of England, captain of Man United at the time, and so we're playing against Marine, and we're 4-0 up, and I think it was Scholes he got brought down, but as the lad brought him down, the ball came to me. So I picked the ball up, I walk up to the edge of the box, I put the ball down, and Bex comes, Brian, he says, I take the free kicks in this team. And I went, on you go, Dave. He went, bang, 5-0.
Brilliant. And that's to his all-time hero as well. That's confidence, isn't it?
He did do them, though. I mean, he pulled England out so many occasions with those free kicks, and what Lewis just said, he must have practiced plenty of those to have that quality on a regular basis.
We've talked about Best, we've talked about Beckham, we've talked about Giggs. Where does Ronaldo rate in Manchester United's history for you, Sam?
Well, obviously he's well up there, because you know, he was a fantastic player. He had one mega season where he got 46 goals. I mean, no bad players get 46 goals, you know. And for me, at that time, he probably was one of the best players in the world. You know, he was getting stronger. He was always quick, but his goal ratio was unbelievable. And he could play right side, left side, a little bit like Bestie in a way. He used to run about. He didn't play naturally right, naturally left. He made space for himself, and he was a powerful player. I think a lot of people underestimate how powerful he was, and his goals were unbelievable.
On the way, all the way. That's just what they needed. A goal inside 3 minutes.
I think it's a great shame that he had this Real Madrid dream, you know, from being a schoolboy, because he would be up there with sort of Ryan Giggs, you know, on appearances, goals scored, all this type of thing, and an unbelievable one club career. That's how good Ronaldo is. You know, so it's a bit of a shame for Man United fans that he you know, he had that Real Madrid dream.
I mean, he did that well, Brian. They compared him to George Best. I mean, any time he played and scored goals, Steve, you know, that the comparison came out. Is he better than George Best? Is George Best better than him? And I think that shows you how well he done for Manchester United.
I must just ask you as well about a different type of player on that list who you played with, Steve Coppell. Because he was a different type of winger, wasn't he?
He was for me. I mean, me and Pop were talking before, and for me, he was one of those first wingers that actually got the work rate into wingers. I mean, he used to be up and down, helping fullbacks for England, for Manchester United. Very smart lad as well, graduate university from I think Liverpool, and he came in and just settled into Manchester United right away. We had Gordon Hill on the left-hand side, totally different than Stevie. You know, Stevie would be, as I said before, helping Jimmy Nicola, helping whoever it was at fullback, getting crosses in and scoring the odd goal himself. But for me, the memory is the work he used to do for the team.
And should have played more, Brian. Longer.
Yeah, it was a bit unfortunate for Steve. I played in the game at Wembley, where I'm sure it was against Hungary, and we beat them 1-0. But the lad made a horrendous tackle on Steve. And he did his cruciate knee ligaments, and you know, in the end, that's what sort of finished Steve a bit early. So it was a shame. But the one thing I like for me was Steve as a player. The centre forwards knew what Steve was going to do. There was never going back on the outside, coming back in. Steve would just get the ball to the width and whip the crosses in. So the centre forwards knew exactly what he was going to do.
OK, let us reveal the two names for the wide men in the team in an extremely competitive category. They are Ryan Giggs and George Best, who pipped Cristiano Ronaldo by 4%.
This is Giggs, and that's absolutely brilliant.
George Best sold two dummies and now has made a chance for himself. His hat-trick!
Two iconic names out on the wings, with Best on the right and Giggs on the left, although both would feel comfortable swapping flanks and cutting inside at will, as well as providing a real goal threat.
Now we're on to choosing the two strikers, perhaps the most difficult task of all. A great list of names from the early days, the likes of Jack Rowley, who missed a large part of his career because of the war, but he still managed to score over 200 goals, netting once every 2 appearances. Tommy Taylor, renowned for his heading ability, the first to run, leap, not just stand and jump. And Dennis Viollet, Taylor's partner and one of the most underrated strikers of his time. He survived Munich and went on to score a club record 32 goals in the 1959-60 season. Some great names, Alex, but let's start with two more European footballers of the year who you played with, Bobby Charlton and Dennis Law.
Well, Bobby's Mr. Manchester United, you know, I mean, he went through everything, he with the air crash and came through. I mean, I think he always talks about, you know, we said before about Duncan Edwards, but the guy that he also talked a lot about was Jimmy Murphy. I mean, he came for him up in the North East and brought him down to Manchester along with Joe Armstrong. And I don't think he ever forgot that. And Bobby, very quiet, but deep down, everything had to be, he was a winner. He was a great passer of the ball. He always wanted the ball. In those days, a lot of players didn't really want the ball. You know, they just kept playing, but didn't want. Bobby always wanted the ball, and he knew he just had that fantastic run, controlled right foot, left foot, shoot with either feet, and scored goals for fun from 25 yards, even more.
Sam, if you put him in this team, you could put him in, what, 4, 5, 6 positions?
Well, I was just thinking, you know, you've got him here as a striker. I can remember Bob in the early days playing left wing out. And as Alex said, he used to score some unbelievable goals. I mean, I can remember watching the television back home in Belfast, black and white tally. Used to call it the Charity Shield in them days, and they played Spurs and on a soaking pitch, and he scored 2 thunderbolts out from 25 yards. But even in 5-a-side, I always remember as a kid growing up at Man United, he always liked to moan Bobby. You know, if things weren't going well for him, and even 5-a-side, he was that competitive. He always liked to moan, and he wanted this performance to be right every time. But a true gentleman man of football, and
that meant everything to him, the club, and us as players around him. You know. But Dennis, 6-yard man, the 12 yards penalty spot to inside the 6-yard box. He was absolutely dynamite. And I tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if Dennis got a lot of his goals off of Bobby's shots and picking up the bits, because Dennis would be in there. He was incredible in the air as well. I mean, I don't know how long his neck was, but he wasn't very tall, Dennis, but he got up and he could head the ball magnificently. But he never ever beat a player, Dennis. He never took a player on and tackled him. It was always a 1-2. Give it, go, and he's gone. And 3 would go, score.
Is it true you used to want to play midfield?
I don't know.
I've read something that, he's a striker, so Matt Busby actually bought him from Italy to be a striker. But Dennis, you wanted to play the old number 10 all over the place and join in and whatever, and that's the role he wanted to play.
I think one of the funniest things, I look back at it, is when I signed for United and I came up to the training ground, which was the Ship Canal at the time, and Matt is now walking me because they were going to play against Blackpool in the League Cup, and obviously I wasn't eligible. But we're walking along and Matt saying to me, he said, they're a great set of lads, these, they're fantastic lads. And the lads are having a five-a-side because they were competitive like Bill was. And all of a sudden there was a bit of a rumpus and Dennis stuck one on Jack Cromps at the train and Matt was saying, oh, it's not normally like this.
Lou, I know you went eventually to play on with him for Scotland, but growing up in Scotland, was he somebody that you looked up to? I mean, he was renowned for those spectacular goals, his ability in the air for a little fella as well.
Oh yeah, he was regarded as Scotland's big player, number 1 player, and his goal scoring record is there for all to see, and it's an unbelievable goal scoring record. But if you were playing against him as a centre half and you thought you were going to bully him, you were making a mistake. And I learned very early on in my career, fortunately with Dennis in the Scotland team, sort of how to look after myself, because Dennis played and I played alongside him. We used to chat the day before the games and over a cup of tea. He's a great man for a cup of tea.
Loved his tea.
Loved his tea. And we used to sit there and he used to say to me, look, one of the things you've got to do, son, in the game is look after yourself. No matter how good a centre forward you think you are, you can be bullied out of the game if you can't cope with it. So get that side of your game in order. And he was superb at that, Steve, along with scoring goals.
Brian, Eric Cantona is down in Manchester United's history now, but when he first arrived, it was a bit of a surprise, the signing from Leeds. What was the reaction of the players when he walked into your dressing room?
Yeah, it was, because the story that was going about at the time is the gaffer had phoned Leeds and was after Dennis Irwin. They said he wasn't available, and the next minute it came round to Eric. But Eric came in and the lads took to him straight away. I mean, people had said about the reputation he had and all this, and he doesn't stay at a club for very long. But Eric came in and straight away his attitude to training was really good. His attitude towards the lads and mixing with them was good. But then he had the ability. And I think what Eric brought to the team at that time was he was the last piece of the jigsaw, because we had great power in that team. We had great energy levels, we had pace, and that all fitted in around Eric with his great vision, touch on the ball, could create a goal out of nothing, could score a goal out of nothing. And he had this charisma about him, which is part of Manchester United. And that's why he slotted in absolute no problem. The only side of it was, we had a good team spirit at that time, and people were very disciplined because that's what the boss had brought into the club. And we knew that the boss was just having a few things, a few problems with Eric. One was like, we go to the city hall, the town hall, and everybody's dressed club blazer, club tie. Eric comes in and he's got one of these gypsy leather ties on, and you can see straight away the boss, he's not happy. But I had a chat to a few of the senior players and said, look, last thing we want is the boss to have to fine him, and then it upsets Eric and takes him out of his form or whatever. So I just went in the next day and I went, boss, look, we know there's a few minor things which Eric, and we know what you're like for fining, but if you don't have to fine him and he stays in his good form and it's not too outrageous, just let it go. The senior boys aren't really bothered about that. And I think that's why Eric did so well for the boss and had a great respect for the boss. And he never did anything that out of order where the boss had to fight him, apart from a karate kick at one time.
Moving on. It's fascinating because there's so many names you could pick for the two strikers here. And goal for goal, would Ruud van Nistelrooy be right up there, Sam?
You look at the record, Steve, it's unbelievable. You think of Ruud van Nistelrooy and you just think of goals. Every time the ball went in the box and when United were doing well, he was the one on the end of it. He led the line well. There was talk about his work rate when he first came over, but I think he improved that. And also you got to remember, when the manager tried to sign him, I think he did his cruciate ligament.
PSV Eindhoven.
That's right, PSV. But the manager had so much faith in him, stuck by him, and still signed him, and he was out of the game for a year. And I think Ruud rewarded that with the goals he scored for the club. Very surprised when he left. Probably had a fallout, which there's a bit of rumour about, but you still can't take away those goals he scored.
And Wayne Rooney, could he go on to be up with the names that we're talking about here?
I think anybody who's been a goal scorer, Steve, as soon as you see Wayne Rooney, you'll realise that he's a goal scorer. There's no doubt about it. He scored them in the youth team at Everton, and when he joined United, everyone was still saying, well, he's still got to do it to a bigger club, and he's got to do it at a higher level. But as soon as you saw him play, at least when I saw him play, I thought, and I'm sure Brian was the same, you thought he knows how to score goals. And inside that box, which is you've got to make quick decisions. He knows how he's going to finish, whether he's going to blast them, whether he's going to chip them, whether he's got time to bend them in the back of the net. And I think that comes with somebody who's eventually going to go on to be a great striker. And I think in his first game, he got a hat-trick against Fenerbahce. Sure. I've no doubt that to come the end of his career, he'll have possibly a better record than all the people we're talking about.
Alex, ability-wise, some of the players that you've been speaking about, Sir Alex Ferguson often says it, when you look at someone, he's a Manchester United player. Natural abilities, Wayne Rooney just comes straight into that category.
He does. I think that, like Lou said, when we signed him and his first game, European game, scoring a hat-trick, but his work rate, that's what it was. And do you know what? That's what gets the crowd going. That gets that Manchester United crowd going. They see a player who's honest and working hard, it gets the rest of the lads playing as well when things don't go, because everything don't go right all the time. But once you get a player doing that, and Wayne Rooney does do that, it's unbelievable for him.
We've spoken about a couple of players who left Old Trafford abruptly. Not too many, Brian, get invited back. Mark Hughes did, though, and in 2 spells was highly successful. Did he not get the credit sometimes he deserved, but team-wise?
But teamwork and, the sort of the ethics side of it, of working hard for everybody around you, that's what Sparky was. Plus he was really strong and he was a tough lad. And like Lou was just saying about, Dennis was talking to Lou about, how you look after yourself, because you've got plenty of hard centre-halves around. Sparky could definitely do that. But he was great at bringing people in. What he couldn't do, really, he wasn't a natural goal scorer because he wouldn't get in the box and get the tap-ins.
But spectacular goals, didn't he?
Spectacular goals and volleys and all that type of thing. And in important games, that's what...
Difficult one to call. A vital decision, the two strikers. It could have been 5 or 6 names, but we're down to 2, and they are Bobby Charlton and Eric Cantona, with Wayne Rooney in third.
Just teed up for Cantona. Oh! A real cracker from Cantona.
So time now to finally name the Manchester United greatest ever 11 as voted by you. Peter Schmeichel is the goalkeeper, a back 4 of Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand, Nemanja Vidic and Dennis Irwin, George Best, Roy Keane, Paul Scholes and Ryan Giggs in midfield, and a front 2 of Eric Cantona and Bobby Charlton. Well, that really is one for pub debate. Let's get our legends view. What are your impressions first, Lou?
I think it's fair to say, Steve, we've mentioned that many great players over a long period of time. Everyone's opinion's bound to differ. I mean, we're sitting here and we've already sort of discussed it off air, and my opinion is different from Al's, and that was always going to be the case before the voting took place. Things I don't agree with. But,
go on. What don't you agree with?
Well, my captain there being left out is just ridiculous. I'm not that bothered about who's put in there, but should have been a place for Robbo, without a doubt. You mentioned earlier, Steve, that George Best got in just by 4% over Cristiano Ronaldo. I can't agree with that either. That's a complete mismatch. You know, George Best was the greatest player for me that I've ever seen. And last but by no means least, the King. No place for Dennis Law up front. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Schmeichel obviously gets it over Edwin. Not a problem with that. I just feel that I thought Duncan Edwards would have been there. I thought Duncan Edwards probably in the centre of the defence, at the back, with Ferdinandovic. Probably with Ferdinand, I would have thought. And Lou's right. I mean, I know Lou's Scottish. There's no Scotsman on there, but I mean, Dennis is, you know, he was European Football of the Year. To play on Bobby Charlton up front, I think that's no wonder, because there's always a question. I mean, Brian was a magnificent captain of the team, and probably in there for Roy Keane, I would have thought.
Brian?
Goalkeeper picks himself. Back four, I probably would have put Duncan Edwards in there, just from the experience I've heard from the boys and then little clips I've seen of Duncan. Bobby wouldn't have played up front for me. He would have been in midfield, and I don't see how you can leave Law and Rooney out of the team.
Interesting. Sammy, have you got similar views?
Yeah, similar from the lads, without a doubt. Definite place for Dennis up front, there's no doubt about that. Also would have had a case for Pop. And at the back, it is a very, very good back four, but I would have had Martin Buchan in centre defence. And
the big question, Brian, is balance-wise, could that team play together? As a manager, would you pick a team like that?
Put it this way, when I was at Middlesbrough, West Brom or Sheffield United, give me that team, I think I'd be a little bit happy. I would be a bit happy.
If I'd win more, it would lose.
Good players can play anywhere with good players.
Yeah.
No, that's a fact, Steve. If you've got good players and you ask them just to go out there and play, I don't think you need a team talk. They've got that ability to play almost in any position, and there's no reason why that team wouldn't be able to go out and beat the very, very best.
Just go and play, Lou. Just go and play.
Yeah, hey, that team's got a balance as well, though.
Yeah.
It's got people who can defend really well, but it's got people who are fantastic on the ball.
OK, and just to wrap it up, we need a manager. Probably only two candidates, the two sirs, Sir Matt or Sir Alec. Who would it be for you?
Well, I mean, Sir Matt was the history of the club. He started everything off, and but the way Sir Alex has taken over everything, the trophies that he's won, it's got to be Sir Alex.
Brian?
Every respect for Sir Matt, but Sir Alex has just got unbelievable record, so he'd have to be the manager for me.
You played under Sir Matt. Have you got a different view?
No, I've got to say, when Matt bought me, I've got to say that everything was taught to us and every player. Manchester United was a family, and that's how he wanted it, and that's how he got it. It took quite a long time to get someone to take up that mantle and extend it, and absolutely, as he done fantastically to extend it in a global atmosphere as well. So I've got to say, Sir Alex.
3 out of 3 for Sir Alex.
Got to go 4 out of 4, Steve, because his record is. You just look at his record; it's quite incredible. And I never thought he'd be able to do what he's done in the time he's been at Manchester United, because it's so difficult nowadays, as managers will tell you, just to stay at a club, never mind have the record that he's got, produce the teams that he has produced. And we've been talking about so many players tonight that have all been under him. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds, and the record itself gets him just in front of Sir Matt.
He's not finished either.
Still going, yeah. Still going. So there you have it, Manchester United's dream team as voted by you. You may not agree with it all, but one thing is for sure, it would be a team worth paying to watch and will give anyone a game. My thanks again to Lou Macari, to Alex Stepney, to Brian Robson and to Sammy McElroy, and to you for watching and indeed voting Manchester United's greatest ever 11.